how our building has changed, how our teachers are changing, and how the sports have evolved.
This next story is going to be about how Fred Seaman and his connection to the Ku Klux Klan has affected us as a Seaman community, how the two students that wrote the article went about writing the article, and how it is different from any other article they've ever written. And also, it's going to tell us how teachers went about publishing this information.
Students at Seaman High School came back to school with a different perspective of the school's name after reading an article published on October 16th by two Clipper editors named Tristan Fangman and Madeline Gerhardt. The article includes newspaper evidence exposing the founder of Seaman High School, Fred Seaman, having connections with the Ku Klux Klan and his leader positions in the Klan. Here is why the two authors of the article and two teachers who helped out through the process thought it was important for the article to come out.
I feel like this is just a conversation we need to have in general. It's a huge piece of information being revealed about our history, how we were founded. So to see from there what we've become and compare and try to move forward is very important for us right now.
I think it's important for students in the community to know the information. I think it's important for just the community to know the information because this has been a rumor for so long. And anytime it's been brought up in the past, the answer has been it's just a rumor. And up until this point it was. But now that we have more information, now that we have more facts in this situation, I don't think you hide those. I think that whenever new information comes to light, it's important for people to have that information so that people can make educated decisions.
And I would agree with that. I think as a history teacher, it's always good to have the full story.
This story started all because of an anonymous tip that was given to Mr. McAllister.
You know, really, this was a huge weight off my shoulders when this came out because I'd had this information for quite some time, and when I first received it, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether I should just go ahead and send it out to whomever, which I didn't think that was the right thing to do. So I went to the board, and so they would have an idea of what was going on, and to let them know that somebody had found this, indeed, at least a portion of this really earth-shattering information. And then it just kind of grew from there, and then Mrs. Riley came on board, and we started digging a little deeper.
Well, after Mr. McAllister gave the two authors a tip, the ladies digged up more information about Fred Seaman's background and found more articles proving their thesis statement. The two authors were chosen to write this article because they are editors for the Seaman Clipper. Both authors' names will always be attached to this article now.
Well, I was a little worried about the negativity I get, but most everything was really positive. I've gotten lots of compliments, and I'm really proud that Mal and I were able to create a story that breaks jaw-dropping news and something that most high school journalists would never get to do. Most of the time, a news story is basically recovering something a big news station like WIVW has done. But us getting to use our research to put something out first was really huge.
Mrs. Riley and Mr. McAllister's thought on the production of the newspaper is coming up.
I was really proud of Madeline and Tristan and the work that they did. I don't know if it's fair for me to say when I read the finished product, because I read it as they were writing it. So it wasn't as though I didn't see it, and then I saw the finished. I saw it as it went through, but I was really proud of the work that they did to remain unbiased in writing this article and the way that they were able to weave in both the articles and the history, and I was just extremely proud of them.
And I would echo that as well. And the idea that from my perspective, I wasn't there the whole time, so reading it for the first time, I was exceedingly proud of what the Madeline and Tristan were able to accomplish, as well as from a history standpoint, the fact that they were not just saying something, that they were backing it up with evidence, and it was hugely important for me.
To conclude this story, everyone involved in the article wants the conversation to keep moving and everyone to remain respectful to others. Recently, the Seaman board had a communication conversation about race, equity, and moving forward together on December 7th, 2020.
This building's been used for teaching for a long time, and reporters Zoey and Autumn went and checked out the different changes that the building's gone through over the years.
The Freshman Center really has not seen a lot of changes because the main idea behind the opening of the Freshman Center was to provide a part of the school that centers on the freshmen and to also provide the teaming process. And by doing so, we have obviously the 3 different hallways, the 3 different teams, and so that has pretty much maintained the same. Some things that maybe are a little bit different is I think we have really tried in the last few years to push the freshmen to become more involved with the high school. When the Freshman Center first opened, it definitely was one of those where a lot of people in the community had some concerns over the seniors and the freshmen being together in the same building, which is understandable. But I think now we're pretty much used to that, and that's not a concern, especially now that we have seen how well the freshmen have become a part of the school. And so that's something we really push a little bit more. It's just involvement in the high school on the part of the freshmen. Well, this is my 25th year here in the building, so I can definitely attest to the fact that there's been a lot of changes since I first started here. When I first started here is when the high school science wing actually opened. And then obviously since then we've had some things, not only the addition of the Freshman Center, but we also added our new band room. So it probably at least maybe doubled or tripled in size. We also added the balcony to the auditorium. That was a major addition when they added on to as part of the building as well. And those are probably the main things that have been added since I've been here.
This next story is going to tell us about how teaching has changed over time, what struggles with teaching were there back in the 90s, and what struggles are there with teaching now.
Steve Bono had just led the Chiefs to a 13-3 record, and O.J. Simpson was just deemed not guilty. Baggy pants were sagging low, grunge music, and Coolio. This was 1995, and I thought it would be a good idea to see how much has truly changed in the 25 years that have passed.
In 1995, I was actually student teaching here at the high school. I was student teaching English and journalism.
I graduated from Florida State in 90, and I started here in the fall of 1990.
Well, probably the biggest one is easily no cell phones. I don't think anybody in 95 had really even heard of one, or maybe if they did, people didn't have them. I mean, they were like these huge, bricks. So the students did not have cell phones. So we didn't have to deal with social media, things like that. There weren't very many distractions in the classroom except for, just your normal, students talking and things like that. Well, honestly, I think the fact that we do have the technology, in some ways it's nice to step away from the computers. Of course, I'm saying that in a year when we're like totally, connected to them because of the pandemic. But I do think that there's a lot of advantages to having the laptops, having access to things, almost on a global, basis that we didn't before. And so that's really expanded, I think, our learning opportunities here at school too.
Today, well, first of all, the biggest difference is just going to be technology access. If you go back to at least I'm thinking in my chronology of when the internet really started to emerge, that's about 1995. I want to say 94, 95 is when we started to all really have personal computers that actually had internet access. I had a computer before that I had bought, but really the only thing I ever did on it was word processing, was typing up tests and stuff.
I think another difference too is, obviously the physical aspect of the building has definitely changed. We didn't have freshmen back then. We didn't have the balcony of the auditorium. We didn't have this huge band room. There's a lot of things. In fact, when I first started here, the science wing just opened that particular year. So the science wing on the high school side didn't even exist up until the year before that. So, physically there was that. I mentioned the cell phones. I would also say I think school spirit was a little bit different. And this might sound kind of odd, but I think students weren't as busy back then. The things that they were busy with was more school activities, and everybody went to everything. I remember when I first started here, I was so impressed with how many people, went to games and, all sorts of games. And the school spirit was pretty impressive. Pep assemblies were amazing.
Okay, so yeah, and we were just talking about this a little bit before, but one of the things that I think is really true that you, like, and even with me too, like say at the end of the class when you maybe wrap up what you're doing in class and you give kids like some free time, now we all have our laptops, and so we immediately like go to our laptops. Most kids go to their laptops. I go to my laptops. I'm checking email. I'm looking at stuff. It used to be like in free time that kids had, a lot of kids would pull out a book and read. And I still have kids in class, of course, that pull out books and read, but it's such a smaller minority of people. I noticed that a lot.
Let's see, I'm trying to remember if that was the grunge. I definitely remember the sagging pants. Right now we're always telling kids to keep their hoods down. Back then it was keep your pants up. So we had that going. Let's see, there was a lot of very low-cut shirts with the girls for some reason. and again, trends kind of come and go, but I would say definitely the grunge and the pants that were sagging, that kind of stands out to me.
I'm trying to remember. It's hard to you put things back like in time. I'm trying to think of like clothing styles and things like that. And I don't know. It all kind of blurs together at some point. Our daughter, my wife and I's daughter, who graduated from Seaman and now teaches at Silver Lake. She was born in '97. So I'm trying to think at that time. I can't pick like particular clothing styles, but I was looking through photo albums, this summer, and looking back like what people were wearing, and like the clothes that I had on, kind of the shorts that I had on and stuff. It's just like so ridiculous looking because they're real long and kind of oversized shirts. I remember like my t-shirts, like now I buy medium t-shirts, maybe larges sometimes. Man, all my t-shirts I have in there, they look like extra large, they look like double XLs or something. That kind of stuff is like looks way different, like kind of clothing styles.
Teaching has changed quite a bit, as you can see, but no matter how much technology and gadgets we gain, teaching will always somewhat be the same. Sports have been a great way to learn work ethic, bravery, and all in all, teamwork. Reporters Zoey and Autumn went and checked out the changes throughout Seaman female sports history.
Seaman was founded in 1920. Sports was not a big thing in the beginning, but that has changed over the years. The initial sports that girls started out with was cheer and dance, and they had a gymnastic team at the very beginning. But that was it. It has changed, and now we offer basketball, soccer, tennis, cross country, cheer, dance, and more.
So I've been coaching since 2006. I started at St. Mary's High School, but I was always the boys coach. Girls basketball hasn't really changed that much since I started coaching. I'm still fairly young in my coaching career, but we have a lot of great teams. The girls play hard. They bring a lot of excitement to our school, to our community, and I feel like we represent the Seaman community very well.
This next story is going to be about the history of the ladies Vikes basketball. It's going to tell us when ladies Vikes basketball was first started. It's also going to tell us how it has changed from when it first started to now.
Seaman Lady Vikes basketball has always had a very rich history here at Seaman High School, from winning the state championship all the way back in 1991 to being a four-way tie for state champions in 2020. Our two recent head coaches have led the Lady Vikes to some great and successful seasons, where Coach Alexander, who coached the Lady Vikes from 1994 to 2018, and then Coach Tinsley took over the job in 2019 and is still the head coach today.
Came to Seaman High School, and I was assistant boys basketball coach for 2 years, and then the girls' job opened up, so I wanted to go back to the girls' side and be a head basketball coach. So I interviewed for it and got it. The most successful season was the class of 2001, because we made it all the way to the state championship game, but we lost to Bishop Miege and got second.
From 1978, making their first state tournament, the Lady Vikes have returned to state a total of 17 times, racking up 17 sub-state championships, have made it to 5 Final Fours, 3 championship game appearances, and winning their lone state title in 1991 under 9-year head coach for the Lady Vikes, Ron Vendeska.
That state tournament was memorable because we beat McPherson, had only lost one game, and we beat them in overtime in the semifinals. And then 2009 was a memorable game. Was we beat Washburn Rural, who had been undefeated for, if they would have beat us, they'd have been undefeated league champions for 2 straight years. And we beat them on their home floor on senior night. So that was pretty memorable. When girls sports started back in the 70s, you know, basketball is one of the first ones that they allowed them to play, even before volleyball and stuff. And so I think it's been pretty important because it's kind of one of those kind of beginning sports that we've had at the school. So I just think I think that since it's one of the oldest ones, I think that's what makes it important. Yeah. So I was the head coach for 24 years, and after me, of course, is Mr. Tinsley, who's starting his 4th year as the head coach. Prior to me was Ron Vendeska, who also was our principal of our school for a number of years. He coached for 9 years prior to me, so like 1984 to 1993, he coached. Prior to him was a gentleman named Blackie Melvin, who had a lot of success too, and he coached in the late 70s and early 80s. I think the very first basketball coach was Mrs. Welch, who just retired last year. And then I don't know if there's someone in between Mrs. Welch and Blackie Melvin, but there haven't been like a ton of coaches. Seems like when people coach, they stay for a long time. So
Coach Alexander brought up the Lady Vikes program and was one of the most successful coaches for the Lady Vikes, putting up a total of 278 wins in his 24 years of coaching, making 8 state appearances. In the 2018-2019 year, Coach Tinsley, who had been a coach at St. Mary's and Jeff West, made the move to Seaman and right away led the Lady Vikes to a 16-7 season and a state tournament. Last season, he led the Lady Vikes to one of their most successful seasons in a long time, finishing 22-3 and made it to the state Final Four after, sadly, COVID ending their season. Lady Vikes basketball has always been a very successful sport at Seaman High, and Coach Tinsley hopes to continue this success as the years go on.
For the last 100 years, Seaman football has been a big part of the Seaman community. Let's see how we compare now to then with this next story from Allie Reed and Sam Shea.
When Seaman High School was founded, students could only compete in either football or basketball. Football, however, managed to become the highlight of the two.
We had lights on the football field. You see, that was kind of preference back in those days. Basketball and track was secondary to football. Football paid the way.
In the beginning, the team did not have enough players to compete against other schools. Coach Chuck Logan needed permission to make a graduate the 11th man, allowing the team to grow in skill and recognition. From the years 1926 to 1932, the team experienced a streak of 61 games without a loss. The team continued to gain popularity after Coach Chuck Logan left in 1933 with a win in the Jayhawk League 3 times.
I was in high school just after he quit coaching. He was just a wonderful guy.
Recently, our 2020 football team brought back the fighting spirit of the original Seaman 11. Throughout the season, the boys managed to earn the record 7-1, battling the 1930s team with 150 more total points scored.
Last season doing 7 or whatever we went, that was our motivation, just to come back and prove ourselves and just prove everyone wrong and show that we're better than we were.
Their season ended in an upset against Blue Valley Southwest during the state tournament, but they still had arguably one of the best seasons in years.
definitely going to miss the guys, just like the brotherhood we had and the relationships we made together, just from summer conditioning, weights, and all that stuff, to spending 3 hours a day together, just all that brotherhood stuff. That's what I'm going to miss the most, just being able to play with those guys. And those coaches that I had, they were great coaches.
With the spirit of the Seaman 11 back in the team, hopefully they find the momentum to take the same strides next year.
For a while now, Seaman and Hayden have had a pretty big rivalry. Let's see how we have done in the past few years with this next story from Savanah Reeves.
Hayden versus Seaman has been the game to see for many years now.
Being involved in that rivalry as an assistant football coach at the high school level for a number of years, and then as our head baseball coach for 21 years, I can think back to a lot of those games that we had over the years in those two sports alone, and know that there were some competitions, there were some games that decided the Centennial League, and went on to play a big part in the success of our teams. Specific to 2013, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say that in baseball we swept Hayden in a doubleheader, which was a really competitive doubleheader because they went on to win the 4A state championship that year and we won the 5A. And to have two state championship caliber teams going head to head in baseball that year was quite challenging, but it was good to have bragging rights after that game. And so I think we could touch on all those sports, baseball or outside of baseball with football and basketball and volleyball. Those are always state level type teams that compete against each other. So it's been fun over the years. Really enjoyed it, from the Seaman standpoint, from that side of it.
Seaman and Hayden have been rivals long before many people can remember. They have always put up a good game against each other.
This is my first year back after being 3 years gone. I was here for 12, 13 years prior to that. So ever since I've been here, it's been a big rivalry. You'd have to ask some other Seaman folks, the Seaman alumni that went to school here. So I think it's a rivalry that's gone back for ages and ages. Just because that's, like I said, those are people that they're really familiar with, and that's you want to kind of hold that over their head.
Just the longevity, the amount of time that both Seaman and Hayden High School have been Centennial League members. We've had great rivalries in all sports. Specific to football and basketball are probably the biggest ones that we've had over the years in those two major sports. Even in the other sports, our auxiliary sports, baseball, softball, tennis, cross country, whatever it might be, volleyball. We've always had really competitive teams as well as Hayden, and so I think that rivalry's kind of been a natural competition for us.
There's a lot of anticipation before the big game, but the main goal is to play well and still have fun.
You just want to keep it a rivalry. You want to keep it healthy and be competitive and come out on top of those, and hopefully you come out on top more than not.
Just the rivalry of Hayden, I think in past years it's always been somewhat heated, but I think over time and over the years it's really been a respectful rivalry, and we do have a lot of people that attend Hayden and live in our school district, and we just compete against them in so many sports outside of the school season, and so you get to know those athletes, and I think a lot of it goes into a rivalry, but at the same time it's two competitive high schools and programs that go out and compete hard, and I think that's what's made it the most fun and enjoyable to be a part of.
Here at Seaman, we have experienced a lot of change over the past decades, but with every change, we persevere and come out stronger. Thanks for tuning in.